So, who am I? Ken McWilliam. That's actually not for your benefits, for my benefit in case at the age I get to. So, born in Ayrshire in Scotland, raised in Yorkshire, God's own country, and lives in Hampshire for a long time. Farnborough for 5 years, Yateley for 37, Ebbsfleet for the last 4. So I've kind of deserted Yateley after a long time. So what am I, other than handsome, charming, witty, modest? Remember 6 nations, it used to be 4 nations. So basically I am 50% Scottish, 40% Welsh, 7% Irish, and for the mathematically challenged, that leaves a mere 3% Viking. Now, Cam, we did your mum's, and she's 9% Viking, and so you are 6% Viking. So, interests. This used to say passions, and I thought it was a bit strong, so I'll change it. Music has been a long-running thing with me. Beer, other brands are available. Making bread, which I've done for 35 years, I suppose. Woodworking, and it's just as well my wife isn't here, or she'd say that's a thing of the past. And keeping fit without dying in the process. So, a bit of background. I'm the youngest of 3 children. It's a cute little guy. Note the coal fire in the background and the bathtub in front of the fire. That's how old I am. A long time before central heating. Born in Troon, Ayrshire. Schooled in Richmond, Yorkshire. That's the real Richmond, none of this fancy little thing on the Thames. And I went to the same school as Lewis Carroll, he of Alice in Wonderland fame, although his real name was Charles Dodgson.
Did you go at the same time?
Yeah, 18-something, I think it was. Thank you. I studied electronic engineering in Leeds and moved to Farnborough in 78. I met my wife, Alex, in 82, and my son, Cameron, born in 1999. If there's any errors in the dates here, please let me know. Okay. So, growing up, my comedy influences were, at the time, I think it was called alternative comedy. So, Monty Python, Kenny Everett, Spike Milligan, people that a lot of you will never have heard. My mother was a secretary, and my father was a salesman. I should warn you that this presentation contains images of graphic surgery, occasional rude words, which some viewers may find offensive. I had, to be honest, an idyllic childhood, growing up in the market town of the Yorkshire Dales. Even when I was a late teenager, my summer jobs in the holidays were driving around the Dales in a Land Rover, servicing the sewage works of the outlying villages.
Beautiful memory.
So my school years at Richmond in North Yorkshire, anyone recognise this chap?
Is it Dave Turnbull? Bishop Place?
It's associated, nearly. So this is St James of Compostela. So he was the school kind of patron, and the school magazine was called The Compostellan, which for school kids was hilarious because it had the word compost in it. I got in with a good set of friends. You know how we talk about environment? It's the same school as my brother. Brother got into the wrong set of friends. I got in with a good set of friends. I still holiday with these friends every year. We've travelled widely together, and it's as if the years between school and now just melt away. Sense of humour is the same, basically teenage humour. I've always been fascinated by how things work. So I take things apart, maybe from I was told, from the age of 2. And I put them back together again, most of the time. And I started building gizmos, mechanical things, pulleys, Lego Meccano, the real kind of Meccano, and real Lego with no kind of preformed bits. No offense to anybody here who's associated with Lego. I built a digital organ, which was absolutely ghastly sound. Then built a digital piano, which was okay, but essentially pretty rubbish. Because the reason I started building pianos and organs is because I was taught classical piano for several years. My piano teacher moved away, and there was only Dr. Bull, the church organist, who was a fearsome character, and I didn't want to move to Dr. Bull. So I stopped playing. My piano became fossilized beneath the layers of teenage junk. It was also next to a dartboard, which was much more interesting. So the piano was full of holes. I discovered prog rock. So anybody know the bands there?
Yes.
Emerson, Lake and Palmer and Genesis. Now, so I had stopped playing the piano. And I was listening to these songs, these artists, and there was one bit of unassuming music that I just loved, a tiny bit that made me say, I want to play that. So, dug the piano out and played it. And I thought, it's not played on the piano, it's played on a mellotron, which is a tape loops with violins on it, it's got an organ on it. So that's why I built a piano and an organ. Off I went to university, aged 18, with my alleged beard. And I studied electronics. I carried on making gizmos, and I made a synthesizer. That's not the actual one, that's a Mini Moog. Mine was like that, but bigger. And it allowed me to, like an idiot, put the speakers out the window of the 5th floor flat we were living in and play Close Encounters of the Third Kind, which was all the rage at the time. My final year project at uni was I wanted to make a digital delay pedal, like an echo unit, but my tutor said, I don't think we'll get away with that. So I actually did a microprocessor realization of a pure time delay for analog signals. So digital echo unit, and it worked, and I was delighted with it. That was when microprocessors had just come out. I'm that old. So, on to my first job as a graduate engineer in the south of England. Here I am. How old am I there? Yeah, so that's 2 years after starting work. Working with a piece of equipment called an exorciser from Motorola. I joined Solutron and I absolutely loved it. I couldn't believe I was getting paid. And as we were in a shared house, 4 graduate engineers, going out, drinking, eating whatever we wanted. At the end of the month, my next salary came in, I hadn't even spent what I'd earned. I was elected a representative on the Works Council. So that's kind of, monthly meetings and issues are brought up from the employees, and I represented engineering. I got a reputation of being quite mouthy about lost opportunities. These products, particularly this one, which I thought was the greatest thing since sliced bread. We poured our hearts and souls into the development of these products. We even had posters. When it was launched, we had posters of it in the lounge in the shared house. Some of you might find that really sad, but we were passionate about it. We'll come back to that shortly. Excuse me. So they said, what lost opportunity? He said, well, this could approach totally different markets. And they said, right, you're going on a marketing course and you're going into marketing and you can go out and find those new markets for you. Okay. So I moved into marketing for 5 years and I really liked that as well. I was marketing this, which was the advanced version of the previous product that I was project manager, project leader for. And I took it to other markets around the world. So I traveled widely, the USA, which was really good fun, especially getting in a car, coming out of JFK and realizing it was going to be all right driving on the wrong side of the road. But when I got to the exit barrier, I didn't know how to open the windows because it was bling-tastic red fake leather and chrome buttons everywhere and no window handle. So I stood at the kind of gate smiling at the guy, poking every bit of trim I could find. Anyway, USA was good fun. I traveled most of Europe, which was pretty good fun too, and Russia, which was grim. This was several times, this is before glasnost and perestroika. It was oppressive, horrible, cold. Oh. People were starved of essentials. Oh, I'm not going to go into it. There's so many other things I could talk about, but yeah, horrible.
So Ken, can you tell us what this thing did briefly?
Oh, okay. Well, that also comes into this next slide. But no. So this is called a data logger or a data acquisition unit. And this box could gather measurements from 200 channels simultaneously. And with slave expansion boxes, you could add another 400. So you could put 600 channels of measurements multiple times a second of strain, stress, temperature, torque from dynamometers, all sorts of things that John will be familiar with. And this takes me to my first coming across a corporate seagull. For those of you who don't know, a corporate seagull is a high-flying manager who swoops in from a great distance, makes an awful lot of noise, shits over everybody, and then leaves. And this corporate manager swooped in and said, tell me what your product does, Ken. And if you can't answer in one sentence, we should can your product. So I said, well, it's multi-purpose. And he said, no, it's too diverse. So I said, oh, so that's like saying, oh, my field of vision is too wide. I'll poke my eye out. Oh, that's much better. I can focus on it. And he said, I don't think you're taking this seriously. I said, okay, yeah. So off he went, and as they do, flitted off to massacre another company somewhere. I left the company. Now, slides went a bit weird preparing these. I've committed the cardinal sin of too many bullet points. I met Alex in July '82, and we went to St. Peter's Church, which you may recognize here, purely to see where we're going to get married. And I met Judy Dival and some other apparently normal people, which I don't know what I was expecting for a church, but and Alex joined a drama group called Peter's Cast. Alex had just won an award, and we have press cuttings of her being presented with her drama award in Farnborough. And at a drama rehearsal, there was a piano in the corner. So I just sat plonking away on the piano, tinkling in the corners. And somebody came up to me and said, are you busy on Sunday mornings? So I joined the worship group, St. Peter's. We all migrated, a lot of people migrated to St. Peter's at the centre. And I married Alex in July. And isn't that a vision of loveliness? And Alex isn't bad either, actually. Now, at St. Peter's, I met Dave Wielden, Dougal Rose, and John Dival. Heavens were all present. And we formed a band. Now, you'll have heard of Tidal Wave. in Dougal's talk. You may have heard of it in one of John's talks. It was kind of a very exciting, fun time, certainly for me. So you'll recognise the tall one on the left, Mr. Magnum in the middle with the big moustache, and John at the sound desk.
Moustaches were very big.
They were, yes. And then we have a rare clip,
Not exclusive.
a rare clip, before the digital era, a rare clip. So, this was a part of a Blue Peter appeal, and there were, I don't know how many people were there, but
2000.
yeah. So yeah, it was good, nerve-wracking, but. So in terms of musical eras, I don't know if you've seen in a kind of recent years the abbreviations or the acronyms BC and AD have fallen out of fashion because they're not faith agnostic terms. So they're now called BCE and CE, before Common Era and Common Era. So there actually is a very similar kind of timeline. There's the pre-tidal wave era, and the tidal wave era, and the post-tidal wave era. Now this device, the Juno 60, I bought with a third of my year's salary. And it featured in a lot of tracks for a good while. And then Mr. Dival very kindly bought it off me. And now it's in Daniel Wheeldon's studio. Still making gorgeous sounds. It's made a comeback. And it's only had one little bit of repair done to it. Gosh, I'm going off tangent. I actually took this and modified it. So it was a bold move. Drilled holes in the back of this and put in a board with a processor on it that made it MIDI capable, so it could be used for going into sequences, etc. So pre-tidal wave era, I was working with a guy called Kane. That's him now.
And all the husbands, all the sons, all the lovers gone, they make no difference in the end.
He was just sitting in our lounge. And I don't know how he got onto it, but he just sang unaccompanied, and all the hairs on the back of my neck stood up because I thought, I'm in the presence of vocal royalty here. He could do Elton John, Rick Astley, George Michael, which that was. And we lost touch. What a surprise. He then went on to great things, and he popped into the house when I wasn't there and said, I've just been in an alpha course and I'm a changed man. He is now incredibly philanthropic. He owns multiple music studios in London. He lives in Hampton Court overlooking the Thames. He owns Guildford Academy, ACM, and he is a really nice guy. I Googled him online, and I got a whole load of him at mega musical events. He is a changed man. Into the tidal wave era.
Trying to make the decision of a lifetime.
Dave's track, what a name.
Reaching out, trying to find my lifeline. They say you never reap what you never sow.
I've chosen 3 just to show how different the songwriting styles were. We didn't do much collaboration until probably the last track. Changed the Outcome was quite a collaboration.
Human race, what's with
Dougal,
is that the best you can do?
including
Is that the best show?
that your best shirt? Is that your best shot? But forever it became, is that your best? Is that your best? Yes, a little Eskimo, lighting up my mind. And then on to Ken and Alex. The drums. Were programmed by Animal from the Muppets and could never have been played by a real drummer, I don't think. Then moving to the post-tidal wave era, when the band split up, I was distraught. We split the proceeds of what was left in the money pot, and I went up with Alex to London to a studio, and I was like a kid in a candy shop. We set off with a sequence on a disc, and yeah, we were going to record something beautifully minimalistic. We failed. So, this is my attempt at being minimalistic. This was called Syncopated version 8, but it didn't really sound very good, so we changed it to Make You Move. So it's not much longer on. Alex has a gorgeous voice. She will not sing. We all know why, don't we, Dave? Flappy bits, yeah. So the minimalistic ended up with samples, sequences, organs, choirs, and was 8 minutes long. So, big, bold move for us. We started our own company in 1989. So there's Magnum with his moustache again. I actually was the one with hair. The other two were bald from the get-go. Yes. We formed a company called Acquisition Systems Limited. We had 4 staff. We had this guy's wife as well, who stayed with us right to when we all retired. I remortgaged the house in Yateley. We didn't borrow any money from any bank, took a huge pay cut, and exciting times. When you start out on your own, it's like, and I'd just come from a multinational. Who does the photocopying? Oh, that'll be me. And, who does the VAT returns? Oh, that'll be us. Yeah. Who makes the coffee? Of course, I always made my own coffee. We worked in engineering field with the likes of British Gas, Rolls-Royce, British Aerospace, anything that had a British in front of it. Working with like precision measurement, multi-channel precision measurement of stress, strain, torque, temperature in diesel engines, gas turbines, gearboxes. Really enjoyable. The company grew. We never explosively grew. It grew over the next 30 years, approaching many different applications. And we actually put in our first pharmaceutical monitoring system in 1991, and it was monitoring a vaccine filling line. So we became established in the field of vaccine production monitoring a long time before COVID. But it became clear, because I kind of come in from the marketing position, that engineering, which, no disrespect, but was kind of oil and dirty things, was very different to pharmaceuticals, which were squeaky clean, hyper pure environments. So they needed different marketing. So the website couldn't be one website that talked about gearbox monitoring and vaccine ampoule filling. So we split. We created a pharmaceutical division called Pharmograph in 2003, because I love a good graph, and it worked in pharmaceuticals. And Pharmograph accounts for over 90% of the group revenue. Engineering, every single thing was very bespoke, which is great when there's 3 of you. But when there's 33 of you, it's trying to maintain 33 different ways of doing things was too hard. So Pharmograph is now a lot bigger. And this is one of the southern offices. And this, do you recognize that? Is Jason's son, Sam. I worked on a wide range of projects and decided I wouldn't talk about things I hadn't worked on. Really wacky things. A dredger cutting gear monitoring in Abu Dhabi. I was monitoring how much force was involved in the cutting gear grinding through the rocks. What I found obscene was the reason we were building a canal was so that the sheikh, one of the sheikhs, could park his yacht. You don't park yachts, do you? Sorry. Moor his yacht next to his palace, which was 23 kilometers inland. So he cut a canal, and it gets worse. When it was finished, the sheikh found the color of the dredged sand, the spoil, offensive to his eye because it was brown, and he wanted golden sands as far as the eye could see. So he employed his brother-in-law, his cousin, his third cousin, and had a convoy of 200 trucks, 24/7, bringing golden sands from the desert and spreading it over the brown sand, which was the spoil from the dredging. And that was the first time I'd ever thought, this is obscene, get me out of here. You know? How does this benefit humanity? The sand will no longer offend his eye. I shouldn't be judgmental, I do apologize. Moving on to glowworm bottoms. I did a project in the UK where a pharmaceutical facility was harvesting glowworm bottoms because the bioluminescent material in a glowworm was used in hygiene testing, food hygiene testing, to create a swab that a food inspector would go in, take the swab out, wipe it, put the swab into a machine, and bioluminescence extract from the glowworm bottoms would scintillate when it encountered a living cell, which is what you don't want in the food preparation area. Fascinating. Then more scary, the enhanced safety shutdown monitoring system for a nuclear reactor. So I won't tell you which one because you'll never visit that county again. So basically, the project I did was measuring the force required to push the shutdown rods into the reactor. Because you probably know a nuclear reactor has a set of columns of uranium, which is decaying and giving off a lot of heat, and they move in and out graphite control rods. If something goes horribly wrong, they wanted to drop in a whole bunch of emergency shutdown rods that would absorb all the neutrons and effectively shut the reactor down or control it. To their horror, they found during some tests, they went, off we go, drop the rods, and the rods went into the hole and went, so it didn't go in. So they decided, we'd better power them in. So they then powered the rods into the reactor, withdrew them. So every week, I think it was, they did this test, and we were measuring how much force was involved in pushing the shutdown rods in. Now that system I think I put in 1982. In 2022, just before I retired, the power station contacted us and said, that system you put in 92 is still running, but it's running on an MS-DOS computer. And we think we'd probably better preemptively replace it. And it's like, has it been running the whole time? Yeah. We've not had a single support call. No. Astounding. And then NHS blood and transplant. I was involved in what at the time was our biggest system up in Speke, near Liverpool. And they basically process donated body parts. It sounds macabre, but it's essential. And so basically, deceased humans would go in one end of the building, things were harvested, and we were involved in the cryogenic storage and incubation of cells, etc., etc. And that system that I worked on, there were over 1,600 measurements, parameters being measured every second, recorded continuously since whenever I put it in, 2003, I think. And it's been doing it ever since. We will come back to the NHS blood and transplant at the end of the presentation. So what on earth does Pharmograph do that makes all the money? Well, it does airborne particle monitoring. If you're filling vaccines in a filling line, you cannot have impurities in the air. There's hyper-filtered air, and there's lots of things associated with doing this. So, does anyone know what that is? Correct, human hair. So a human hair, this is just to give you some scale. A human hair is about 100 microns in diameter. So that's 100 millionths of a meter. And we can all those of us got any hair left, you can look at it. 50 micron particle, that's half the diameter of human hair. It's just about visible as a speck to the human eye. For pharmaceutical monitoring, we needed to measure particles by the scale of it, which are 5 microns. And the reason the pharmaceutical regulations specify 5 microns is that 5 microns is big enough to carry a bioburden. It could have a bug on it, not a a virus or bacterium. And it also mandates measuring 10 times smaller than that, half a micron, half a millionth of a meter. And we count how many there are in a cubic meter of air within the facility. And you'll be pleased to know that you're basically allowed absolutely none of these and a teensy number of these, 30 maybe, that are a general indication for cleanliness. Now, the instruments that do the measurements, called particle counters, are incredibly sensitive, as you can imagine, and extremely prone to contamination, which, if you're in a service business, is brilliant, because the customers are always contaminating the product. They cannot run a manufacturing line without continuous monitoring, so they have to have rigid service, maintenance and calibration contract with the suppliers. So that kind of explains why the service department and calibration department, which Alex, my wife, started, is the profit engine of the company. I think the service department turned over 4.5 million last year, which is a huge margins. Meanwhile, Cameron arrives in May 1999. I'm jumping around a bit because your life is layered and whatever. And Cameron was long awaited, about 15 years. That's a whole different story. And I count him as the greatest achievement of my life. Yeah. Talking of achievements, we'll look at Ken's great sporting achievements. And, okay, now given that I have the motor skills of a daddy longlegs on crystal meth, coupled with the speed and agility of a sloth, and the hand-eye coordination of a mole, which has neither hands nor eyes, it's not really surprising that I have very few sporting achievements. However, my only sporting achievement, I would say, brought about by Comic Relief. They set a challenge to row 1 million meters on a Concept 2 indoor rowing machine. That's the equivalent of 500 Olympic race distances. You don't do it in one go, by the way. So I did 10 kilometers a day, 6 days a week. I expended 54,000 calories in doing so. Consumed 274 bananas, because they're very good. I lost 5 kilograms despite eating like a horse. And the personal trainer at Yateley said, you've got to be careful here, because when you finish this challenge, your weight will go up and you'll never shift it. He was absolutely right. I finished 11th in the UK out of vanity. I wanted to be in the top 10, but I stopped went home, got the video camera and got Alex in to video me. So I haven't finished 11th. I raised 1,500 quid. Exhibit A. That's me doing the last 500 meters of 1,000,000. Now, I love a good graph. So during this, I was wearing a heart monitor. So if you take my heart rate in beats per minute as the y-axis, the time into the row in minutes as the x-axis. Now this requires a bit of wiggling about. So I start rowing and my heart rate goes up. So the blue line is before I did the challenge. My heart rate reached 173 at the end of 10,000 meters and dropped, so I was reasonably fit. By the end of the first 12 weeks of rowing, or 12 weeks in, then the red line shows it doesn't go up as high and it basically stays flat. It doesn't go up anymore. I could just row forever because my fitness levels were up. So, yeah, no pain, no gain. I joined the Beacon Church. I visited it in 2009, I think Andy actually invited me. And I joined the worship team in 2010. Now, I left the church in 2016 because I could no longer play the piano. I had a condition, a hereditary condition called Dupuytren's contracture, where your fingers bend in, and there's nothing you can do about it. You can't keep them straight. Various famous people have got this condition. So, it's known as Viking hand or Celtic hand, and I don't think the 3% Viking did it. I think the 50% Scottish did it. So I couldn't play the piano. There's all sorts of side effects. If you tried to wash your face, your fingers would shoot up your nose when you didn't want them. And horror of horrors, I couldn't hold a beer glass, neither a jug nor a handle. So I had a double needle aponeurotomy in 2014, a double dermofasciectomy and a Z-plasty. I might have got that wrong, you might correct me, on another finger. And then a single dermofasciectomy plus a Z-plasty. Now, if you're squeamish, time to look away. Dave? Okay, right. So, this is this hand. It was Frimley Park's first triple finger surgery. So basically they removed, Dupuytren's means that bits of your skin that are fixed, like the palms of your hands, if you try to pick up a suitcase with skin that moves, like everything else on your body moves, but the palm of your hand, soles of your feet, it doesn't. That grabs hold with Dupuytren's and it pulls it in and it's attached to the tendons, and basically things come in and you can't do anything about it. I've still got it despite 3 operations. So they remove a whole bunch of tissue and then they take a graft, so this is the donor site, they take skin off here and then they attach it to the fingers in place. And this finger they kind of went in from the side and hacked it. And this, I can't remember the right phrase for it, but they don't stitch it, whatever, they just leave it and miraculously it heals. Ooh, my mind has jumped back to Pharmograph. Our exit strategy, well, what was it? We realised quite a long time ago the average age of the staff was mid-50s, all very skilled people. We were getting old. We needed some young blood. My basic philosophy was to offer opportunities and training to realise youngsters' potential. The right qualifications were far less important, and we had many success stories. And without embarrassing Jason, Sam Quant is a success story. There are many others in the company. The company funded kind of qualifications to go alongside their learning on the job. And I retired in 2022 after, 33 years. And the 3 founders of the company sold it to a trust, and it now has about 80 employees, I think. And I own nothing. And they have offices in the UK, in Finch, Hampstead, Runcorn, Stirling, Lisbon. So I retired, and I woke up, and I thought, what am I for? Camera's grown up. Yeah, what am I for? I wasn't ready to retire. There were plenty of DIY projects I could do, but didn't, and still haven't. Then the house flooded in 2022 due to a burst hot water pipe. 250,000 litres of water escaped, and we had 8 months of misery. All the floors come up, all the wooden flooring, solid oak flooring was destroyed, plaster came off the walls. We had a temporary kitchen on the back patio. It was ghastly, but all is well. So, our house church. I stumbled upon it for reasons of being mates with Dave and attended Alpha in January 2024. I found it really interesting. Why did I go? I went because I wanted to re-examine the reasons I left the church. It answered many questions, but not all of them, but that's the nice thing about our house church. I really enjoyed mostly the interactions with the small groups and people's different takes on things. I was invited to join the worship team last year as well, and I've not been kicked out yet. So, we're nearly there. We're on the home straight. My 4th job. I got a bit bored being retired and not doing DIY. So, this is me. Everyone that works at Elusive Brewing has an avatar, a little 8-bit pixelated avatar of themselves. And I'm renowned for wearing shorts and a t-shirt and a baseball cap. I thought I would honour you by wearing jeans today. I'm a barman at Elusive Brewing. It is a multiply award-winning craft brewery in Finchampstead. Many of you will have been on the tour there. It's best known for its West Coast IPAs, and its theme is 8-bit gaming, retro gaming. If you want to embarrass yourself, go along and play Tetris or Super Mario Kart or something. It's got a little tap room where I work. It's only open 2 o'clock to 8 o'clock on Fridays and 12 o'clock to 8 o'clock today. And I will be serving this afternoon. Now, I thought we'd end with a bit of levity. Ken's famous gaffes. Now, I could have done an entire talk on Ken's famous gaffes. The Monsieur Renault incident, which many of you will have heard. I was doing an Anglo-French project, a collaboration. And collaboration with a French company basically means everything is done the French way or it doesn't happen at all. We're in Paris, and as with the French, we had coffee. It was lovely. We had a glorious lunch, and we chatted a bit about business, which was the reason I was there. Monsieur Renault, who was hosting it, realised that my bit of the work was done. And he said, and the protocol was, we would try and speak French, the French would try and speak English. So Monsieur Renault said, Ken, Michel goes to the airport. Go with him. So I said, So I thought, I've got to thank him. So I came back in the room and I said, Monsieur Renault, it was very nice to meet you. In an outrageous French accent. And I had my only out-of-body experience. My soul left my body and bobbed around at the ceiling. And I looked, and my English colleagues were going. So, Cameron's first steps. Now, I do have video of this. I have chosen not to include it. We went on ferry. And Cameron was tiny, and most adults were struggling to stay upright because of the pitching of the ship. Cameron decided to start walking that very instant. So we went back to the cabin. I popped out the video camera, and there he goes, toddling across the cabin. So I go round with the camera. There was a full-length mirror on the back of the door of the cabin. Cameron goes off screen. Years later, Karen and Dave were around at the house, and we were looking at videos, because we get lots of videos with Dan and April in. I had no clothes on at the time. And I completely forgot. So we panned past, and Karen went, did you see that? And with Dave's impeccable time, he went, yeah, it's like a willy, only smaller. So I have the video, but I'm not including it. Oh dear, there's more to come. The unintentional surgery incident. When we first started business, we did everything, as I said, ourselves. I would run out, I'll use all the wrong words here. We're going to place an advert, so I had to run out onto, you take a disc and they run out all the titles, the copy, body text, all that stuff separately. Yeah, and I would physically scalpel it into pieces, and then I'd send the slides for colour separations, and they'd create the advert. So I was also writing code, and I was sitting at my leatherette second-hand desk with a scalpel, trying to work out why this bug, I couldn't get this bit of code to work. And I needed the loo. And I went off to the toilet, thinking about what could cause this bug, and then suddenly there was this horrendous pain and a lot of blood, and I had impaled my todger on the scalpel. So I then got my hanky out and tried to quench the flow. And I phoned Alex and said, "You'll have to come and pick me up." He said, "Why?" I said, "I've had an accident." So we went to Frimley Park, and I was sitting there, what can I say in the triage? So I was thinking about, I caught it in a zip. And I thought, that's going to wash it. When I got there, she said, "What can I do for you?" I said, "I'm afraid I've stuck a scalpel in my penis." And she said, "Can I have your date of birth?" As if the fifth penile stabbing of the day. And so, I'm overrunning. And then the doctor looked at me and he said, "Oh, we can't do anything with that. We can't stitch it for obvious reasons. You're just going to bleed a lot," which I did. Now, what I couldn't work out when I got home was why my foot was absolutely killing me. And I looked down and realised my white boots, which were from Tidal Wave, stage boots, were pooling with blood. And it's because, with the shock of impaling my todger, I dropped the scalpel, which had gone straight through my big toe. And so, yeah, I had a secondary injury.
You are expected to.
Yes, and at work, my secretary brought a fax over, which said, from Dave Wheelton, and it said, "For the attention of Ken McWilliam, I believe this is how it should be done." And it was a graphic representation of circumcision. And she said, "What is this about?" I said, "You don't want to know." So I think that's it. It's the end.